Here's my real question. With everything sort of changing in the digital landscape, new products coming out, Tonocracy, Tone Master Pro, what does Helix 2 need to have? Like, I think a lot of people are waiting for Helix 2. I think if you're a lot of Kemper users are just resolved to be like, Kemper can do whatever they want. They are in their own brain space. They may never release another Kemper. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Or it'll be like something you implant in your head. It'll be something off the wall.
Knowing Christoph Kemper, that's probably
right.
But Helix 2, you know, we've got things that are borrowing from the Helix. A lot of people are waiting. What features now does Helix 2 have to have to be successful?
When did the Helix come out?
About a decade ago. After the Kemper, but it's been like a decade. Maybe 9
really?
years.
The Kemper was first.
Kemper was first.
Dang. Whew, that's
Helix started production. When I say started production, they first started theorizing the Helix before 2008. And they wanted to put something out at that level.
Right.
Now, in fairness, I want to, like, line in the sand. I'm not saying the technology they released, they started back then. But they started designing a product. What would a product look like? What would it be like?
Right.
They then sold to Yamaha. They came out with the HD 500 because the economy tanked. They wanted to go mid-level price. They then took that project, moved it out. That becomes the Helix.
So my first actual like guitar rig, half stack cabinet was a Line 6. I forget what it was called now, but it was like a head and a cabinet. It was like the Line 6
The Veta?
HD, no,
Or
it
the
was like
Flex Tone?
no,
HD
maybe
something. Yeah,
HD 500 or something like that. That
Okay.
was when I was like touring in a band.
Yeah.
That was and I spilled Dr. Pepper in the top of it.
That's great.
And that was the end of my Line 6 days.
Wow.
It like fried on the stage. I had to borrow someone's. Then I had like a Hughes and Kettner for a long time. But so Line 6 has been around. They were like the first. That's why I'm shocked actually that the Helix didn't come out until after the Kemper because all like Line 6 had been doing modeling. They were the first ones.
They had other stuff. I mean, look, the DL4 was historic. They had it.
I had that.
They had, and
Everyone did,
obviously they did the Pod HD 500, Pod 2.0, Pod 2.0 XL.
Yeah.
What does Helix 2 have to have?
So that's
Yeah.
What it like? We've seen new features come out, sharing on the cloud. Marketplace type stuff, capture tech, a bunch of options with signal chain routing, tons of DSP, spillover. What does Helix 2 have to have that is now normalized that it maybe they don't have yet? Like, what do we think it's going to have?
I have one idea, but I'm interested to see what other people think first.
Well, I think capture tech for me, like
I agree.
that's been the line in the sand for me has been those two types of technologies,
Yes.
so like Helix, Axe on this side,
Yes.
Quad Cortex Kemper on this side.
Yeah. And Axe has the tone match,
Sure.
which is interesting. Which I did a video on the patent that Cliff has, and it's interesting. I'm not a patent attorney, so people are going to jump in the comments. You're an idiot, but okay, shut up. It's an interesting patent from what I can tell. It has to do with taking an existing model, listening to an input, and making changes so that it matches the other thing. And it talks about where it does that and how it does that. At first glance, you might go, well, that's what the Kemper does. I don't know that that's what the Kemper does, even though I've heard Cliff on those forums say a lot. That's the Kemper, and he even jumped out and said when Kemper added the EQs, the
liquid
profiling, that it violated his patent, and then he never said anything about it again. So I don't know if he jumped out, didn't understand it, or didn't know what they were doing. Somehow this capture tech is different.
Okay.
These aren't like existing models in the sense, or else they should be able to go after everyone and say you can't do this. But no one, I haven't seen those lawsuits. I don't know. So like, it's always made me wonder if maybe that's why we never saw anything, because it kind of seems like, with the exception of Kemper, unless you do machine learning, it's kind of the only It's the only capture tech that everyone's jumping on. Everyone's on this machine learning AI capture tech.
What if Line 6 goes to the developer that developed NAM
Yeah.
and says, hey, Steve, here's a giant check. Right? And
But
we want to put your technology.
It's open source, so they don't even need to.
Oh, then that's even worse.
They
for
can
him.
just make it play.
Yeah.
Tonocracy added.
Is using it.
Yeah, the new atomic thing. Tonocracy
Added that.
They have their own captures, and I think they have their own models, or maybe the captures, but they're using the term scheme accurate.
Okay.
Schematic,
Right.
scheme accurate.
Yeah.
But they have NAM models. You can load in NAM models, and it adds functionality. It'll play your NAM models at different sample rates, which the current NAM player does not do.
Wow.
So, and you can add effects. It's native. Like,
Right.
it makes sharing easier, maybe. So, one company's already doing it. Line 6 could do it.
Yeah. They
To
should.
me,
I mean,
I
honestly,
think it's got to have capture tech.
Yeah.
It's got to have some sort of capture tech or referencing. I don't know if that violates the fractal patent or not. It's got to have a touch screen,
Yeah.
but it's got to have, to me now, better visualization. I think you got to see the gear,
Like the Fender.
like the Fender.
Master,
I think
yeah.
the thing that Fender really did right is you see that gear and it feels like you own it. I think it's a really profound thing, actually.
Well, so I was going to say, I think it needs to be smaller. I think it needs to be a lot smaller, and it needs to have more DSP.
Sure.
I feel like that's one of the big things that you see now. Like the Quad Cortex is a lot smaller. You know,
Sure.
I mean,
But nothing as small as the HX Stomp, right? I mean, the HX Stomp is like
yeah,
the
but
little
it doesn't
brother.
have the capability that the full Helix. We need the full Helix. We actually need more than what the full Helix is capable of now in a
but
smaller.
also in a small. So you
also
know who
in a
did this?
smaller
Boss
package.
did this with their GT1000. There's a GT1000 full pedal board, and there's a GT1000 core. It's the entire thing in the size of like their delay unit. It's the
Right.
entire thing. You don't have as many buttons,
Right.
but they're like all the functionality, same exact thing. We just took away all the
Yeah.
ins and outs and stuff.
Okay. Huh.
But I feel that's what I was gonna say. I mean, because I think that like, yeah, things like touchscreen and all of the user interface things, I feel like those. This is like the hard part for me. Is what is this unit built for? Is it built to be on a stage and be stepped on, or is it built to be on your desk and touched?
Yeah.
And I feel like we're trying to optimize for both of those things, you know? But they're not really that good at either. And that's actually, I think, one pro of things like the Quad Cortex and the Helix is that there's not as many things to get
Yeah.
in the way, right?
Well, you know, the Helix has that stupid foot edit mode where you can actually select a parameter
That's
and
right.
edit it with the expression pedal.
Yeah.
no
which
one's
is
done
like-
that. No one's done that.
You know what that reminds me of?
In
I got
real
in my
life.
buddy's BMW, and if you want to turn up the music, there's a camera watching you. You go like this.
Stop.
No.
I'm not kidding.
You
That's on
gesture.
high-end BMWs. You
gesture.
pretend that you're grabbing a dial and turning it.
No.
And it's like, whoa. I'm not trying to learn sign language to communicate with my car.
Right.
How about I just push the button?
What was so wrong
How
with
about I
that?
touch a touch
Yeah.
screen?
Yeah,
It's not easier to just go like this to
Oh my gosh.
pantomime.
I'm sorry. As a software developer myself,
It's the worst
Yeah.
idea.
it's like that's an idea.
Germans
it's
came up with that.
No, it's an idea that one engineer had one time.
Yeah.
He's like, we can do
Yeah.
this, and then
Everyone has missteps.
someone
Yeah.
someone ran with it, and that guy's super stoked. Which is, I mean, hey, that's cool. Does it need to be in there? No.
I would like to change profiles just by going like that with my
Yeah,
finger.
let me just
like in
pretend.
the air.
I'm controlling my
Yeah,
camera.
a little bit more presence.
Camera is a little-
Wow.
So you think smaller?
I think it's got to be.
It's
smaller.
got. They've got to have the full unit in a smaller thing.
I mean, I'm looking at it. They've got 6. There's 2 rows of 6 foot switches.
Yes.
That's probably, they could probably do, the Quad Cortex has 2 rows of 5, but they're smaller. But then I don't know, do they keep the built-in foot pedal? I think that's the other thing
Right.
too.
A lot of people love that. There's definitely going to be a full floorboard, but you think
Yeah.
smaller, maybe bigger than the HX Stomp, but that little brother version, but with all the functionality.
Yeah.
I think that's
more
interesting.
functionality than it currently has.
Yeah.
Right.
Improve and then
Like it
maintain
doesn't
all
have as
functionality.
much DSP as other things do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's got to have that. It's got to have. I mean, I mean, I think it has to sound better too, but that's just my own opinion. I don't think that there's not that many things in the HX Stomp that I think sound really good.
Yeah.
Right. And this is coming from a guy who loves to buy cheap guitars, right? Like, that's just my own opinion.
Is it getting harder to differentiate? Like what we're saying, I agree. Touchscreen, smaller, more powerful. But like what hits me is none of these things are revolutionary. We're basically saying make the product better. But that doesn't like.
It's kind of like asking, what do you want in the newest, Galaxy smartphone from Samsung?
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, do you want it to fold in half?
Yeah.
Like maybe.
Right.
Who wants that really?
Right.
Right. So we're really splitting hairs at this point. Everyone's got touch screen, or everyone's got like big screen. It's really, at the end of the day, for me, it's all about, what is it optimized for? Is it optimized for the stage, or is it optimized for your desk?
It's starting to feel like the new iPhone, right? You take every new iPhone, you compare it to the last iPhone, and everyone's always disappointed. There's really not new features in each iPhone. But you take an iPhone 15 and you compare it to an iPhone 1 or 2, this is a totally different device. The capability is through the roof. They're huge changes in actually a short period of time. 14 years, 13 years.
Yeah.
It's a huge change, but we're watching every iteration happen. People aren't into replacing their model or every year like your iPhone or whatever, because there's not that backwards compatibility where new stuff is then supported on every old one, for a while like it is with a phone. But what if it is? What if something comes out that's more premium than the Helix, and we see the Helix drop to $1299, and that becomes, hey, we have a unit, we were making new stuff for it, because this is kind of how Pod Go's working. They're making new effects for Helix, and then they don't always get to Pod Go, but sometimes they do. Now, Pod Go users will complain, yeah, it's been 8 months. We haven't got any of those new effects. And then all of a sudden, they'll be like, yeah, but okay, here's 2 of the new delays that we put on the Helix. Maybe it's not everything, but the stuff that we're developing for this more premier thing, we are giving you some of it in product support. Could a better unit come out with more DSP, increased functionality, all the functionality basically of the Helix, but more functionality? And I'll tell you, that reminds me of the DL. Do you remember the DL4, all those pedals? It made its way into the M9, which is still sitting there in the Helix.
Yeah.
Look, it's all, but
legacy.
The bigger thing though about these types of units is the CPUs. Like, the reason that the delays don't come out for the Pod Go right away,
of course,
it's because it's probably a different architecture, like the software. And so, and the thing, when you talk about like iPhone's a great example, because what's the cost? What's the cost of hammering the CPU more on your phone over time? What does everyone complain about?
Battery life.
Your battery life, right? If you have a 5-year-old iPhone, everything works perfectly except your battery only lasts for half the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
What if only half of your guitar signal came out the other end, right? It's like, it's a non-negotiable.
Yes.
Everything has to come out perfectly.
Yes.
Right? And if you start dropping frames, right, people will not use the product at all. They'll say this is completely unusable.
What if a whole delay repeat just fell out?
Exactly.
but
right.
Ready to go.
And so that's the thing. Like, with these older units and the smaller units, that's the limitation.
Right.
Is everyone wants the same things, but you can't go upgrade the DSP and the CPU after the fact. And so that's why, things like the Fender, what's it called?
Tone Master.
The Tone Master are coming out with more DSP than anything ever, right? And
they're using newer chips, way newer chips
and that's the thing.
11 years.
Yeah. And so if they're smart, they've already figured out how to get more out of those things in the future with software updates because they can't update the hardware.
And conversely, like what you're saying, actually, I think really makes me even more convinced that they will leave all this legacy stuff in, because the newer unit will run the older Helix models like that, which is, we're still playing the same delays, if you pull them up, as we played on the DL4. The original DL4. Like, those are in there.
Yeah.
And the original reverbs. How often are we using the 63 Spring?
Seldom.
So
Yeah.
no, but come on. There's a spring verb or I'm saying
Yeah.
it's
Right.
common. There's a
Yeah.
63 spring in there, and there's a spring reverb.
Yeah.
If you want a spring reverb, is there a dynamic spring?
There's a new, dynamic spring.
No, but
I
that's
guess,
the dual spring. That's almost like a
like a new algorithm.
It's not even like
Yeah.
a classic spring. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like supposed to be more malleable and
Over
stuff
the
and sound
top,
different.
yeah.
But like I'm saying, the main spring
Mm-hmm.
is the same one I used in like 06
For sure. Oh,
on
yeah.
my M9. I
Yeah.
thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and it's fine. It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, those things become easier to do because of the new chips.
Yeah.
Now the CPU's working like it's nothing. It's like having a vacation. running your-
Exactly. And so that means that you can get more lanes, right? You can get more things happening simultaneously, or you can get, more of the same thing, but it won't make it sound any better.
Is it all just a laptop eventually?
Well, it is a laptop now.
Is it all just your phone then? Like my phone's at the gig. No one's ever going to say, you're carrying your phone on the stage? My phone's always in my pocket. Like it's never without. It'd be weird if I left my phone off the stage.
Yeah.
And if I don't have it with me, I'm thinking, oh, shoot, did I silence it? Where is it? Is it all just going to be on my phone?
Well, I
Like,
mean,
does
there's-
it all get so small that we don't even carry gear anymore? And it's just like,
For sure.
I run everything from my phone.
I mean, you could have GarageBand on your phone.
And
I
my
think
phone-
that you technically could do that today.
And my phone is already my monitor. Or my phone's already my control
Yeah.
for my monitor
the-
mix.
yeah.
Yeah. And there is a
For the
supposed-
pedal too.
Yeah, there is a monitor that
Yeah.
runs from your phone.
Look, I mean, the chips inside our phones these days are astounding, right? So the games that they're able to play, you just convert that into, it's the same math.
Yeah.
I'm over here thinking about the iPhone thing, and I think the upgrade from my flip phone to an iPhone was like mind-boggling. The
Yes.
fact that I
Yeah.
could, used to try to get on the internet, it took me 20 minutes to go to like one site on the flip phone,
Yeah.
to like iPhone Gen 1. Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
So that was my jump from playing, the Bean, Line 6 or whatever, to a Kemper was like, oh my gosh,
Right,
what in the world
right.
just happened, right?
Right.
But the difference between my experience playing a Kemper now and 6 years ago is not that different.
Right.
Couple delays, couple reverbs.
Sure.
So even the way you frame the question,
In fairness, more than a couple.
yes,
Dozens of new effects. Okay. Anyway.
yeah, but the profiles,
Cab model.
they all sound good.
But it sounded great then. It sounds great now.
That's my point,
Yeah, yeah.
And so I've made, and you're saying we do this incrementally with the products, right? They get a little bit better, but
Yeah.
over time you look and say, wow, that's a big change,
Yeah.
So the way you frame the question was Helix 2 comes out, what features are in it, which I thought was so interesting because it's like now we're talking about features more than we're talking about the sound of it because it's, I think that, and there were a lot of comments about that in our video about the ToneMaster Pro is like, basically, do you want a touch screen? Do you not? Do you want,
Right,
them to look
right.
like pedals? Do you not? I mean,
Right.
it's like
There's not
the
as much
sound-
differentiation. Yeah.
And it's like pick your poison. I think was a lot of what people were saying was like the sound is what it is, and you just get into any of them. And so I'm sitting here thinking, what would I need from a Helix 2 to sound better than the Helix now? I don't know. That's why I said capture. I think that's the limitation is if I want my amp, like my matchless 3015 I played for 10 years. If I
Yeah.
wanted that amp,
Which
I
is
could tone
available.
match
It's called
it.
the Sousa's 3015. It's
Yes,
available.
I could tone match it, but it's different than making. I'm getting
Yes.
a model or whatever like that. We actually captured it and put it in the
Yeah.
Kemper. I will always prefer that. I think
Yeah.
to Line 6 gave me an AC30.
We should
Line
tone match
6
it, by the way. Make that available.
We really should.
There
though.
we go. Yeah.
There's so many ideas coming out.
So
of this.
many ideas.
So that's kind of where my brain's at. Is like it could do cooler stuff and look cooler doing it.
Yes.
But what is actually making me sell the old one and get the new one? I don't. I thought that about a Kemper too.
Right.
It's like, oh, this one has, 2 profiles at once or what? It's like,
Right.
would I ditch? I don't know.